Welcome to LOA Today. Walt and life coach Joel Osteen here. Today is Wednesday. It is May 23rd, 2018. It is 8 a.m. Eastern Time, your first daily dose of happy for the day. And I'm particularly happy, Joel, because yesterday we had an internet outage here. So we didn't have a morning dose of happy. I couldn't put it out there. There was no connection at all. And poor Tom Wells was sitting at the other end, ready to sit in for Cindy like you're doing today, and couldn't do anything. So it's great to be back online again.
Well, good. I didn't know that happened yesterday, and it's one of those uncontrollables, and
That's right.
It's sort of the concept that the great value of the internet on one level is also we're a slave to it when it doesn't perform as we expect. So
it's all good. It all worked out nicely. Just missed one episode.
Yes.
That's all. That's not a biggie. No big deal at all. And we had a good show in the afternoon. So we did have a good show yesterday. It was just a little bit later than expected. That's all. So how are you doing?
That's all that matters.
How's your week been? Have you had a good week?
Exceptional week. We've had, last week was a very rainy here in Central Virginia. And we actually have had sun the last couple of days. My yard looks, I don't know what you'd call it, but I'm waiting for the yard for people to come mow it. Because it's pretty high. But outside of that, we've exactly, it needs a haircut, exactly. But we've had such this time of year, one of the rewarding things for me is, I work with a lot of young people, and they're often struggling greatly, and they have issues, and whether they're in high school or college or on a sabbatical from college or what have you. So this time of year, I get texts from parents and from clients that often will be, sometimes it's just a picture of a young man graduating or a young woman graduating. No explanation. Or sometimes there's a word thank you attached, and to know that there's been an influence on someone who has changed their life so drastically. There was almost no chance of them graduating, to the point of them graduating and thriving. It's very uplifting to see that. I really, and I always look forward to this time of year with people that I work with. And there's one young man in particular that I really didn't think he had any shot of making it. I mean, he was just very, just defiant and just really stuck in an entirely negative set of mindset. And it took a while for us to really sort of break through that. But once he did, he's just started thriving. And he's graduating high school this year. He's a year late graduating high school, but he's not only graduating, he's graduating with honors. And it all that changed when he changed his perspective. So it's such this time of year again, it's very rewarding, and I'm grateful to see what influence the law of attraction has had, and how because I use that so much with my clients now, and in this young man's case in particular, he really has become an understanding advocate and practitioner of the law of attraction. It's really changed his life.
Fantastic. Boy, that's a really gratifying change, particularly when you don't think it's going to happen and it happens. I mean, among other things, it shows how resilient people are. And that's one of your favorite topics.
Yes.
But it also shows how people, even in the worst places, can just turn around on a dime if they really, really put their mind to it and produce amazing results.
And that's one of my beliefs is the lower you get, the more spectacular the turnaround can be. It's you see, in some ways, rebounding from a bottom is easier than changing a mediocre life, because rebounding from a bottom, you have to take action. You're already uncomfortable. You're already in a really bad place. So you almost have the mindset, well, it can only get better. And so if you start moving forward, it's easier. The harder place to come from is living in a mediocre existence where you don't like your job, you're not happy with your life, but yet you're able to pay your bills and you're able to do the stuff you want to do, and you become sort of trapped in that. So sometimes the lower the bottom, the easier it is to practice these principles that we speak of.
Okay, well, that's a good thing. Yeah, and it ties in actually with what I picked up from your Facebook timeline. You posted something. I guess it was off of Instagram, but it was not a cliche, a quote from Joel Osteen as opposed to Joel Elston. We should differentiate here. Joel Elston is my co-host. Joel Osteen is, I guess, he's a Christian preacher, isn't he?
He is, and he's very much a law of attraction person, even though he doesn't use those words. His messages are very law of attraction based.
Right. And the quote from him says, "The more you talk about negative things in your life, the more you call them in. Speak victory, not defeat." That's a pretty powerful statement, and not the kind of thing we typically hear from a Christian preacher. So that's really, really interesting.
And one of the fascinating things, and I'll do a sort of my Joel Osteen thing, which, by the way, I've met him one time.
Oh, you did?
Really nice man, and it was actually our names that got us to say hello. And,
right, yeah.
So it was pretty cool. Really nice guy. Very, very. I'm just very impressed with how he sort of views all this, and he has a very. He's a strong Christian, but at the same time, he's very much into the positive, the law of attraction, not the punitive side of a lot of that some of the fire and brimstone preachers get.
Yeah.
Now, one of the interesting things, though, Walt, and I don't like to talk negative, but I want to talk contrast here.
Okay.
I am shocked at the number of people within the Christian community that shun him.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I mean, even more so than people who don't believe or actually or atheists. I mean,
right.
It really frustrates them that he doesn't carry the message of negativity of the burning in hell, all that stuff. And so I see just anger sometimes put toward him. And I'm fascinated by someone who's speaking such a positive truth can draw so much anger from the very people that believe exactly what he's talking about, allegedly. It's a fascinating dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. In fact, I know somebody who isn't a preacher or anything like that, but very religious, and he once described Joel Osteen as Christianity light. So it was like a little backhanded slap at him, like, well, he's not really all that important.
Exactly, and they dismiss him, and they a lot because he does focus on living the positive, living within this spectrum. A lot of people call it the sort of just a money making. He has tons of money. He's very successful. He's made his money mainly from writing books. And he has a massive church that he doesn't even take a salary from, but he makes a lot of money writing books. And so people criticize that. And it's like, well, okay, I don't get it. But at the same time, his message remains solid to me. And so I try to get people to just realize, like, listen to the message, and don't get stuck in criticizing. But so many people tend to do that. But I'm going to sort of step away from that and get to the quote. I've heard this said in many different ways, and one of my favorite ways of saying it is, when you worry or have anxiety about any issue, it is like praying for what you don't want. And this is a very similar statement of the more you talk about the negative things, what you fear, what is going on. This is, law of attraction 101. That's where your energy is being focused. When you're placing your energy and and then you feel negative, because again, the law of attraction picks up on your emotions, what you're feeling. So, okay, I'm negative about money. I'm negative about relationships. I'm negative about jobs. I'm negative about all this stuff. And then you unintentionally are actually drawing the same stuff in. So the more negative you talk, the more negative you're inviting. Law of attraction, once again, this week, I'm going to go on, keep my record alive, doesn't care. It has no emotion. It just responds to where you're at. And so that negative, my life sucks, my job sucks, I don't have enough money, and I'm fearful based or I'm negative based about everything, then yes, that will continue to be your life. One of the things, I'm meeting with a young man tomorrow, and his dad had him call me, and this was I've never met him, or obviously, and so we started talking. So he said, my dad said, I need to come see you. And I said, okay, well, tell me what the problem is. He goes, I'm just unlucky. And I'm like, well, I said, I've never seen anybody for the condition of unlucky. But explain to me why you're unlucky. And he has this list of things that have happened. And in the midst of this it's mainly financially driven, of where he's unlucky. Things keep happening to me, and I'm doing all the right things, but things keep happening. And he said, my finances are a mess. And he said, I can't ever get ahead because things just keep happening. And I'm expecting more things to happen. And sure enough, they happen. I said, well, you've already answered your question. I said, but when we meet, he said, well, what financial paperwork do I need to bring in so you can help me? And I go, oh, you don't need any financial paperwork. And he's, but I have a financial problem. And I go, no, you have a perspective problem. You have a thought problem. I said, you believe you're cursed. And he goes, well, yeah. And I said, well, you are. And he said, well, really?
Oh, that's funny. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt the story. I know where it's going.
Again. Yeah. And he says, well, what? He was not expecting me to say that,
Right.
I said, well, you are cursed. And well, what do you mean? Do you have proof of that or something? I said, well, you are cursed because you believed you're cursed. If you were blessed, you'd be living in a blessing. He said, well, that can't be that easy. And I said, we'll talk about it more. I said, but I don't need your financial. I'm not saying we can't address some of that down the road, but right now there's zero chance of you getting better as long as you have a negative view of your situation and you're anticipating negative things to happen. And he did describe some things that sounded a little far out there. And if they're true, but I can see how he invited them. He's like, he took a trip to, to visit some friends in New York, and he had budgeted, he had saved up for the trip, and he got an Airbnb. And while he's driving, they canceled the Airbnb because there was a conflict, there was a problem. So he didn't have a place to stay on his way up. He ended up having to pay twice as much for the place to stay in New York where he was going to stay.
Wow.
On the way back, his car broke down, and he said, and that's just what always happens when I do anything. And I said, yes, because you're anticipating all that. And I said, and also your response is, if you're an hour north of Richmond driving to New York and the Airbnb calls, maybe it's time to say, maybe I need to go back to Richmond instead of forcing yourself to double the money. There's a perspective attached to that.
That's true.
Of let me regroup versus what I need to do. And so all of this could be viewed either direction, but the quote that we're basing this on is similar to this concept. When you talk negative, that's what you bring. You call that in. But when you speak victory, you call that in as well. And I feel that is for me, a very oversimplification, but accurate description of my discovery of the law of attraction and how to apply it. I was 100% in the negative. I had so much stuff going wrong. I kept anticipating things going wrong. I really would get to a point, Walt, where something would go right, and then I was like, okay, boy, that things don't go right for me, so there's going to be something bad happen. And shockingly, not now, but yes, it did happen. I used to have a belief: anticipate the worst, and you're prepared for it. And that's how I lived for a long time. And the truth is,
you had quite an experience with it too. I mean, when you lived that way, you had really quite a series of experiences that we've talked about.
Yes, and and I kept waiting for the next bad thing to happen, and and the universe kept providing me with more bad things. And I said, well, it can't get any worse than this.
Want to bet?
Wow. That's a shock. It can't get any worse than that. Well, maybe I'm wrong there. So, But
it's easy to laugh, I know, but
getting
still.
worse. Well, ironically, and this is, and I say this in a very, this really, really happened. I was, the first night that I had no place to stay, I stayed in a hotel room, and I knew I was basically homeless, and I said, "Oh God, I don't have a home. I'm staying in a hotel room." When I ran out of money, I slept in my vehicle. Well, it can't get any worse than sleeping in your vehicle till you don't have a vehicle, and then you have to sleep in the flower bed. And so I kept experiencing new levels of. I kept saying, "Boy, I sure wish I had my vehicle." It was. I kept going so far down that my perspective was, yeah, it can get worse, and it kept being fulfilled that way. Versus the other side, where when you speak victory, I had no. When I was at the depths of my life, and I sort of discovered this turnaround process of the law of attraction, there was not a plausible path to where I am today in my mind. I don't know how I could have gotten out of where I was at. It just seems impossible from today's perspective. Not from today's perspective, but at the time it seemed impossible. And now I look at it and go, wow, this is all that changed. It wasn't anything, I didn't quit magically being cursed. I changed the way I was thinking. I reversed the way I was thinking. The energy that I was putting out then started attracting more of that. That's where, the personal responsibility and it's this victimhood that is sort of that reinforces, it's not your fault, poor thing. It's that bad things are happening to you. I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know how you're going to handle it. Bad things are happening. And sure enough, bad things continue to happen.
I know it's a long time ago, many, many years ago that you went through all that. So it's not necessarily easy to remember, especially because we don't like remembering, difficult stuff anyway. But at the time, do you have any recollection of what you said to yourself differently or what you said to others differently that started to change your pattern of talking about what was going on in your life?
Well, I have a sort of a general. I can't feel the emotion of it any longer because it's just a different place now.
Right.
Yeah, but I do know I would sit and say, okay, here's what I normally. I remember changing the perspective of instead of what I don't have, what I do have. I remember that being in the beginning. I remember saying, when I was staying in this halfway house and I was turning my life around, it was a very dirty it was in a beautiful location. The house was terrible condition. And it had a bunch of men living there. So in Florida with the humidity and a bunch of men and no air conditioning, you had some roaches and it wasn't the nicest place.
No.
Yeah, it really is. And for those of you who've never had the privilege to see a Florida roach, they are armored and they can fly. So they're about 3 inches long and they are a scary sight, you would turn on the light in the bathroom and you'd hear them just scurry. And but what I would focus on, Walt, is I had a bed to sleep in, I had a warm shower. I was 2 blocks from the beach, and that's the stuff I started to focus on. I didn't have a car at first, but I did have public transportation. Okay. I didn't like public transportation, but I did have it.
You had it.
So I do remember starting to live in gratitude for what I had instead of comparing my life to what everybody else had and focusing on what I didn't like. So I would start calling in the victory, so to speak. And then I started doing better. And when I would get stuck
that's a pretty big shift right there. I mean, compared to where you had been, that was a really big shift you made.
Right. And that sort of changed when I started saying, well, wait a minute, I cleared, and I would love to tell our audience who have been possibly struggling with the law of attraction. I would love to tell you that I snapped my fingers and I did this perfectly. I had moments of falling back into the old way of thinking, but for the most part, I would try to force myself to say, look, I'm not in jail. I'm not sleeping in a flower bed. I'm not eating out of a trash can. And all of those things have happened before. And so the fact that I'm not there, I'm looking at my life as on the way up. Now, am I where I want to be? No. But if I keep focusing on where I'm not where I want to be versus being grateful for where I am, then more things start to happen. And then when I moved out of the halfway house, I moved into I'll never forget this. I was paying a lot of restitution back to the state of Florida and a lot of debt. And so I had a very little income and I was living very, very tight. So I needed to get out of the halfway house. I'd been there quite a while, and I ended up in this small little apartment. It was the back part of a house of this older couple. Oh my goodness. I walked in there and it felt so freeing. Now, by anybody's standard, this is not a nice place, but it's nicer than I was at. And it was my own space. I hadn't had my own space for a while. So it was my own place where I could just sort of relax on a level that you can't relax. One of the reasons I enjoyed time by myself for so long, I had no time by myself. So it's something that I learned to appreciate. So I really liked that place. And then the next place I went to was a step. And so I kept looking at the progression of how things were getting better. And, whether it was my finances and started having extra money, not much, but a little bit. And I started working on building my credit. And I started identifying first the little victories daily. And then I started focusing on the little victories. When the car would break down, because I had a clunker car at that time, I would focus on, well, I do have a friend that can pick me up. I'm not happy my car broke down. It turns out instead of a $500 repair, it was a $50 repair. So I'd focus on those positives and what was working and what wasn't working.
Wow.
And I didn't do it perfectly, but so I learned early to find the little victories in a day. And that is so huge. Finding the little victories in the day. That's an awakening.
That's really the way it starts for everybody, isn't it? I mean, I assume that because I know I went through the same kind of process with my own turnaround, and I've seen other people do it. I would kind of extrapolate and say everybody does that. You have to kind of go through that process of transition.
Yes. And often there's an event. Often there's a chain of events. But at some point, the people that become successful in the use of the law of attraction identify the direct connection between where your energy and emotions are focused. If you right now, if you're thinking, if you wake up in the morning and you're worried about your finances, the first thing, well, what you're doing is you're putting an emotion out there, an anxiety attachment, and a focus on on the lack of money or your perceived lack of money, and that's what you're going to invite. Or if you get up and say, whether you have a lot or not, whether you get up and say, I do have a place to live, I'm not hungry, my finances are growing, I have enough to cover today, and focus that energy is a positive on where you're at, then you're going to start attracting more. A lot of people say, Joel, that can't be that easy. The problem is you're assuming what I'm saying is easy. It isn't easy to have a victory view of life when you're in the middle of perceived defeat.
It's true.
Because
you can't see it. Because you can't see anything else. That's all you can see when you're in that place.
Right. Well, one of the things that the great victories in my life has been, no matter what I'm going through, no matter where I'm at, there is a side of me that deep down knows I'm going to overcome this. I'm going to turn it around. And through years of practice and years of actual have this work on my benefit, I don't fear the lack anymore. The lack is not a thing in my life anymore. I don't lack health. I don't lack friends. I don't lack a quality of life. I have plenty of money. All that stuff is I don't lack any longer. And so I'm not putting that signal out there at all.
Do you get the sense that when people are in that bad place, they recognize that they're focusing on lack? Or do you think that they're focusing on something else?
I think they're focusing on their argument internally is they're focusing on their reality. And that's what they don't understand their reality. They're in charge of their reality. We are brought up to believe, and I was brought up to believe, I don't like to incorporate everybody, that our situation was dictated to us, and that gives us our perspective. Meaning, you're poor, so your perspective is you're poor. That's how most of us are brought up. Be realistic. Look at where you're at. Don't, and this concept, it invites more of that versus, no, my perspective dictates my reality. So you get to choose what you're looking. You're not poor. You may temporarily be without funds, but you're going to bring those about by thinking of abundance, by living. And that's the place where so many people start to squirm and say it doesn't work that way. It absolutely works that way. Now, it's not thinking I need $1 million. That I'm not saying that's never worked for anybody, but I am unaware of all the people I work with that have made that drastic leap. Most people, including my personal life, it's been I did not believe I was going to go from waiting tables, making $12,000 to $15,000 a year early, to making a couple $100,000 a year. I didn't believe that. So that wasn't a possibility at that point. Mm-hmm. But I did believe I could go from 12 or 15 to 25, and then from 25 to 30 or 40, and then from 40 to 60 or 70. I did believe it only because I could have made that huge flip, but you almost have to do it incrementally. You almost have to view it in a way you believe is plausible.
Mm. And I would say the reason for that
when somebody buys a lot.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I think the reason for that is when you're in that negative place, it's like you were describing earlier. You don't do it perfectly when you're trying to make the transition. You don't make that transition perfectly. You slip back. We all do it. We slip back. We slip into the old patterns. And because of that, making the huge leap becomes unattainable. Because in order to make the huge leap from there, you got not only do you have all that negative momentum you're overcoming, but you're trying to establish some positive momentum on top of that and maintain the faith. That's a gigantic task to do. That's why it's not the best way to go about doing it.
Well, and one of the analogies I like to use is, and this is a good time to talk about it. I was watching the Golden State Houston Rockets NBA Western Conference Finals last night, mm-hmm. and I'm not a big basketball fan, but I have great respect for the athletes, and I try to watch the playoffs and finals of any of the sports. Mm-hmm. And so I was watching it, and the talent of these gentlemen is it's off the chart. They have incredible athletic ability.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm looking at James Harden, who is one of the best players in the league on one side, and then you have Kevin Durant on the other side. Mm-hmm. And these are just world-class athletes playing basketball. It's hard to imagine. They're almost 7 feet tall. They're agile. They're fast. It's amazing what the gifts they have.
Yep.
Well, I have zero real belief that I could compete with them in a game of basketball.
I understand. I think anybody does.
I cannot fathom being able to do that. Well, I have zero chance. I have zero chance because I know I don't physically have. So I am already blocking that. And I'm not suggesting that I could, because I would never have a belief that I have that skill set. However, either of those gentlemen would like to go to the gym with me and work out. I can outlift them. I'm stronger than they are. And I know that. And so again, it's about where your focus is and how you feel. And if you don't believe that you could turn these things around, have you seen these, and I'm sure everybody has on Facebook where they have, 18 questions of, who you are, that kind of thing.
Personality type quizzes.
It's just one of those random quizzes, get to know you, and they ask just general questions. Well, one of my friends, he posted this, and really good guy. And, one of the questions is, do you make your bed every day? No. What's your dream job? Then you say your dream job. Well, one of the questions on there was fear. What's your fear? And his statement is always being alone until I die. Hmm. Well, he's lonely, obviously, by his statement. I'm not, he's obviously lonely. But he has no understanding, and trust me, I've tried to deliver this message, that he is thinking that negative thought about the lack of a relationship or the lack of companionship is actually driving this to reality. So when you look at that, it matches exactly what Joel Osteen was speaking about here. When you look at the negative situation, when you look at that, when you talk the negative game, so to speak, or the fear game, then you're doing that instead of the victory game.
Mm-hmm.
If I were filling this out, what is my biggest fear? I have lived through everything life has thrown at me, and I'm not trying to sound arrogant. I don't fear whatever comes along anymore. It's not tempting fate. It's just life has thrown a bunch at me. I just know I'm going to handle it. I don't want to handle everything that could happen, but I'm capable of dealing with whatever happens. Well, I've proven that over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not fearful of stuff like that, but it's what you talk about or what you really believe that becomes what that internal dialogue is telling you. You attach emotion to that. If you get up every day and you're really pleased with your life and you're looking great and you're feeling great mentally and physically and all the other stuff, then you're great. If you're looking at, it's such a chore to deal with life. Life sucks, or I don't want to go to the grind. It really is what you're inviting. You're inviting more of a grind. And that's the beauty of the law of attraction. You're in charge.
Yeah, and once you know what it is, and once you're honest enough about it, isn't that a key piece? I mean, that's what I thought, and I still think today. A key piece is how honest can you be with yourself about what it is that you're putting out, what it is that you're feeling, what it is that is your predominant life pattern and thought pattern.
Right. That makes everything, and that puts everything in, how the universe works, and the metaphysical approach or thought is your emotions generate an energy. It's almost like a radio transmitter and receiver at the same time, and the energy or the frequency you're putting out there, whether it's negative, positive, or anxiety filled, or whatever term, I don't know how many frequencies there are, but there's a bunch. and I just thought, and to count them, I'll do that before next show.
Oh, of course, yes. Which is tomorrow, so you have all of 24 hours, by the way.
You know the odds of that happening. So, but when I'm putting that frequency out there, I then receive it back, and it's a matching frequency, and that is metaphysics. That is, the thought. Einstein years ago was talking about thought vibration and thought energy. They have, as our brains start to advance, and as we're able to measure these things, there are clear indication that there's a direct energy put out by our thought and emotion. And people that work that process through meditation and really becoming mindful in a sense, increase their ability to put that energy out there. And that's been measured. And that's exciting to me that we're getting science to back up what the law of attraction has told us forever. And it's such a, not that I need science to tell me that, because I'm living this in my life. But, a few weeks ago, I mentioned, there was a study that talked about acupuncture not being effective. And it was recent, and it made pretty big news. All this study indicates there is no medical benefit to acupuncture. Well, Chinese medicine has been using this for 6,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is, it has incredible medical benefits, not because you're sticking a stupid needle into a meridian in your body. It's because you believe it's working.
Mm.
That's the answer. The idea that belief is the real thing that makes it. Acupuncture works great if you believe it works great. If you don't, if it's a scam, it's a scam.
Mm.
But the truth is, all healing takes place inside.
In the mind.
And whatever conduit we do,
Mm-hmm.
the mind does the healing. The brain leads the body to heal. And now I think acupuncture is a wonderful way to help the mind focus on an area. Mm-hmm. That's why, like the idea of pain, pain's horrible. Let's stay away from pain. Let's medicate away from pain. Or what if pain were just the body saying, hey, we need attention here. I need the body to focus on that. Maybe that's what pain's intended for. Maybe it's signaling the body we need some repair here. Let's get busy.
It's funny
These are
because
things that you.
I'm sorry.
What?
Go ahead and finish your statement.
Yeah, these are the things that the law of attraction alludes to. It's a bigger process than just I'm thinking happy thoughts and things are going to happen. All of this is very deep, but the pain part's huge unto itself.
It is, yeah. What I was going to say is that I continue to be amazed at the ability of the scientific community to do everything in their power to not only overlook but also to dismiss what is often called the I can't think what it's called, the effect where the placebo effect. They want to dismiss
right.
the placebo effect, and I think you and I have actually talked about this a few times. How there are a few very brave researchers who have discovered that the placebo effect is almost as effective as the effective effect of whatever medications that people come up with. And yet it just gets dismissed as if it doesn't count. And I have to wonder, when are people going to finally realize that what the placebo effect is your mind influencing your healing?
Yeah, people will dismiss it. Well, it's only the placebo effect. Are you kidding me? It is the placebo. You're right. It is, but it's not only. It is the answer.
It's the answer, right.
I shared this several shows ago, and I don't remember exactly when. I hate to bore the audience with repetitive stuff, but it's so relevant here. I was running a group last year at an addiction clinic, and it was a Saturday morning, and one of my participants in group was unable to get her Suboxone refilled. So she was in severe withdrawal. And it is a horrible state of mind where you have extreme pain and all you're focused on is I need my medication. That's it.
Wow.
So it was Saturday morning at 10 o'clock when group started. She came in and she said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't have my med. I think I might die. And you do not die from opiate withdrawal. You want to die maybe, but you don't die. There's other things you can die from, but opiates aren't one of them, from the withdrawal. And so but at the same time, I'm not dismissing that feeling she was going through. So I said, look, I will text our doctor and see what we can do if he could call something into the pharmacy and make sure, or at least get you a day or two supply. And the truth is she could have if she was waiting for insurance to pay it, she could have easily bought a day or two supply herself. But again, we can talk about that victim statement later. But so what happened was about half, she's sitting on the floor, holding a pillow, rocking back and forth, and literally groaning during group.
Wow. Her
pain was real. So I get a text halfway through group from our doctor, good guy. He said, that's tough. I'm sorry she's going through that. I'm on my way. I'll be there by the end of group. And he had some stuff there that was going to get her through a day or two. And he was going to give it to her. So I said, look, the doctor's on the way. He'll take care of. Now, that's all I had to say.
Yep.
Now I'm observing all this. Now she doesn't know that I'm observing all this. Instantly, she quit rocking. She put the pillow down. She started smiling. She was relaxed. Her withdrawal symptoms went away.
Wow.
Not because she received a drug. She knew the drug was on the way.
It was the anticipation.
That is the placebo effect. Yes. And when you're dreading, what her pain was causing her was, I'm dreading this feeling versus somebody's coming to fix this. This is huge. Is huge. The placebo effect to me, it is the answer. It's when you believe that, almost every traditional form, what the commonality that the American Psychological Association talks about that which therapy works best, Walt?
What's that?
Whether it's cognitive behavior or no matter which one you do.
Yeah.
The therapy that works best has nothing to do with the therapy. The factor that matters the most is the belief that your therapist is competent and know what they're talking about. That's
Really?
the commonality.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
That is the single biggest commonality, is when you really are buying into what you're being told. That helps. The method is irrelevant. And that is such a, it blows the doors up, because the reality is, it isn't what you're doing, it's the fact they believe it.
Isn't that amazing? Wow.
Yeah.
Now, how does I have to ask you, because you're in the psychological field, and you keep up with it. I'm sure you read the journals and so forth. How is that received within the field?
Oh, they hate it. They hate it. Well, because it's no different than, when people try to quote unquote disprove my beliefs, I'm like, how dare you? And I don't do that, because I've learned. But for a long time, it used to drive me crazy. Well, I factually know the law of attraction works, because it worked for me. That's how I'm telling you it works. I don't need a study to do that. I'm in perfect health. I've cured my depression and anxiety. I've arrested my addiction. I have an incredible life. And everybody's like, well, yeah, you just believe that or whatever. Yes, that's right. That's all that happened. I just believed it. It's there's a, I don't know if you're aware of the EMDR therapy.
I don't know if you're aware of that. No.
Okay, it's called the eye movement desensitization and reprocessing method.
Okay.
And it is effective, very effective for people who are dealing with trauma.
Okay.
And this came up with the concept that the lateral eye movements back and forth are an external. Actually help with trauma. It helps relieve trauma. It's a body's coping mechanism. So you basically teach people how you bring up their trauma, and then you basically have them move their eyes back and forth. It has been deemed effective with trauma, and there are several practitioners of this method, and a lot of people report huge improvement with this.
Which is fantastic.
And, it is. It's great. I'm so glad they came up with this idea. However, there have been studies that said it's absolute bunk. It doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it does, again, for the same reason. The late Dr. Wayne Dyer used to always talk about tapping. Tapping is a method similar to this, where when you're feeling anxiety or emotion that you're not wanting to feel, you tap sort of the meridians as you get at the top of the head, right under the neck, the elbow and the wrist and all that. And it shows this rapid tapping, sort of like using your fingers for a form of acupuncture in a sense. And it's very effective, again, because people believe it's effective. That is where the law of attraction transcends everything. It's your mind is the power. The body responds to what you believe. I have seen people with stage 4 cancer cure it by their thoughts. I've seen that. So now I know science will say, well, that's not accurate, Joel. You can't. And I'm not suggesting anyone, I always have to have this disclaimer. I apologize for this. I'm not suggesting anyone not follow their doctor's orders. I really don't. I mean, it is.
Sure.
But I don't know any cancer doctor in the country that will not agree that a patient's attitude has a huge impact on healing. Now, most of them won't go as far as to say they don't need the other stuff. And I would never recommend someone stop their cancer treatment. I would always follow your doctor's orders. But I guarantee you, every doctor now at least can acknowledge the mindset of this. It's incredible. It's very important to understand this process helps healing. It is the point of healing in my mind, but minimally, it is an incredible tool. It's something that is underutilized. And that's sort of like, circling back to Joel Osteen's quote. If you declare sickness and you accept sickness and illness as your plight, then yes, it's a big problem. If you declare victory and healing, the body starts a healing process. It doesn't understand what's happening. The law of attraction does. It just simply responds. It's a real thing. And it's all combined. And again, what I don't know if traditional medicine or, and I'm sure, I have tons of friends that are doctors. Half of them think I'm crazy. But they all, I get along really well with them, but they still, by the way, they still all refer to me. They refer patients to me. So they do acknowledge that what I do help people. And I have one doctor that answers his own question. He's referred several patients to me, and we were having a discussion. He said, Joel, you do realize that all you do is you just simply motivate people and they start believing in themselves. And I go, yeah, that's what I do. And he goes, well, that's not really healing them. I said, what is healing? And so he was trying to, we weren't having an argument. He was trying to dismiss. And I've never been that extremist where, hey, Walt, if you have an infection, go get an antibiotic. If your appendix is bad, go get it taken out. I'm not suggesting you sit there and go, let me heal this internally as my appendix explode. I'm not talking to that. I am talking about when I had my gallbladder out several years ago, and I went in at noon. I knew I had it. It's hereditary in my family, and I had a huge stone stuck. And I was in big pain. Mm. So I went to the hospital at noon. They did emergency surgery at 1:30. Gallbladder was out. And when I sort of came to, I got my shoes on, so I'm ready to go. And the doctor said, no, you got to stay here until I said, show me what you need me to do to prove I'm ready to go. And he jokingly said, well, walk around the entire top floor, on the floor, walk around there. And you'll be good to go. I walked around there immediately. and he goes, no. He said, and finally, by 5 o'clock, he said, just go home. Just go home. You're driving me crazy all weekend. And so I'd happened to leave my charger there for my phone. So the next day, I went back to get my charger. And I'm in street clothes, walking normally. Now I'm not trying to be Superman. I still had pain, but it was just healing pain, I call it. And so there's a gentleman in the room next to me that was actually a couple of years younger than I was, that also had his gallbladder out. He said, what happened? I said, what do you mean? He goes, did you not have your gallbladder? I said, yeah. He is in unbelievable pain. He's constantly asking for pain medication. This is the worst pain I've ever experienced, blah, blah. And he was living we had the same surgery by the same surgeon.
Right.
And he was in misery, and I'm about to go watch a football game and eat some chili. It is the mindset that I was healed in my mind. Yes. I needed to get rid of the gallbladder. And I'm not saying I couldn't have healed the gallbladder with my mind, but my mind was not accepting that pain and healing at the same time. So I needed it to go. Yeah. But this is all part of that. Are you healing, or are you, you could be sick. There's reality. People do get sick, but are you healing? Is it a mindset of healing, or is it a mindset of sickness? And that's the $1 million answer right there for health. Are we poor, or do we have a lack of funds? There's a big difference. I might have a lack of funds now, but poor is a mindset. Poor is a belief. I know this family locally that I've been working with. I'm very fond of this family, and I would love to see them. And I know some of their kids, and I would love to see this victory that I know that one of these kids is going to have at some point, but they're having a really hard time. That they are poor, and they do things to remain poor unintentionally, and they can't get a mindset of abundance, and you see the kids falling into the same pattern. They start behaving in a way that will fulfill the destiny of being poor. Now, these are bright kids, but yet they keep moving forward by moving backwards, and it's this back and forth thing, and so they're actually moving forward toward more poverty. And they anticipate more poverty, but they take no action to get out of poverty. And so that's part of what I'm doing. They're not really clients. They're just friends I know from the gym. And, I really am trying to help more than anything, change that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very hard thing to do.
Yeah.
But when you see that happen, you see miracles happen.
It's a fascinating thing, too, because as you were telling those stories, and there are a lot of really good stories right there, the pattern that keeps coming back to me is, and it wasn't directly what your message was, I just kept seeing it. Every time you had to put out the disclaimer, very reasonably, that, don't treat this as if you don't want to go to the doctor and do what the doctor recommends. Don't ignore medical advice. Do all that stuff too, but also include the mental part of it. And the
Right.
thing that I'm noticing is this tremendous tendency that we humans have to make it one or the other, not both. You have to either go with the traditional medical way of getting a treatment, or you have to use the mental approach of healing yourself from within. You can't do both. You have to go out and physically get the job and earn the pay and do the hard work, or you can try to manifest money magically out of thin air. You can't do both. You have to go out and find the relationship with the ideal person, and you have to just slog through it until you find the right person. Or you can put out there mentally all the things you need to do in order to attract it. You can't do both. Where the heck does the can't do both come from?
Well, and that becomes my, we talk about the action side of the law of attraction. I am a big believer in holistic natural medicine and healing. I believe all that's huge. And I'm also amazed and in awe of our amazing medical system that has made huge development. Polio was a disease that we eradicated. That's amazing.
It is. Yeah.
We kicked a debilitating disease's ass and made it irrelevant. Smallpox is irrelevant. And these are things that the amazing medical system, this Eastern medicine didn't cure that, Western medicine did. So I'm a defender of both. I think they both have roles. I think they both are incredible tools. One without the other, to me, is about 50%. It's like one of the things that, and I won't get on rants about antidepressants, but one of the things that they always say is studies with antidepressants are 75% more effective when you combine antidepressants and therapy. Yeah. There is this middle. There is this amazing thing. It is such an incredible point of view to live in right now, an incredible point to sort of pivot from. But this is where it's at. When you get, hey, I am putting out there this energy. I can heal, and anything that will help me heal. I have, I will use, last time I used anything that was purely medical is I had an eye infection, conjunctivitis, probably 2 years ago. I could have sat there and probably made that go away and heal. Or I called my buddy and said, give me some eye drops. It was gone in 2 days. It's like, okay. So it's foolish not to use all tools available to us. And that's the beauty of it. But I find how both sides get offended when you want to incorporate the other. It's like we can't play on the same turf. It's like, the positive psychology movement, which I love, and it's huge, disowns the law of attraction movement.
Yeah, then that's something.
You're the same thing. You're saying the same exact message. But they want to distance themselves because, you're just, blah, blah, blah. You're falling into this woo-woo religious kind of thing. It's not. It's just it's the truth. What you believe is your reality, your placebo. We are the placebo, as Dr. Joe Dispenza told us.
Yeah.
This is very important stuff.
It is. And it needs more attention.
It is law of attraction.
It needs to be brought up more and more, just how important the placebo is. Because placebo actually goes far beyond medicine. Placebo, it impacts every area of our lives. I mean, is there any area it doesn't impact? I can't think of one.
No. it absolutely, I'm unaware of anyone. In fact, as we're talking, I did a Google search for placebo definition. It's the first part is a harmless pill, medicine, or procedure prescribed more for the psychological benefit to the patient than any physiological effect. A substance that has no therapeutic effect, uses control testing and new drugs, a measure designed to merely calm or please someone. So even within the definitions, they have done this processing of, it doesn't work. Placebo's a negative. No, the truth is placebo, going way, way back, is a way of, it's Latin, literally saying, I shall please. But when you please, or when you have the emotion, or you feel pleased, or you feel it's working, it's working. There's a real effect. A real effect.
It's almost as if we believe, some of us anyway, believe that there is no therapeutic effect unless you can remove the human being from it.
Right.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
But
if you want to get on if you really investigate the effectiveness of certain medications, and you understand how that's determined, it is such most medications, other than, we know how an antibiotic works. That you can see that under a microscope. Mm-hmm. But like stuff with the mind or the brain, antidepressants. In the literature, they say, we don't know how it works. Here's what we think is happening. So there's no way to measure the truth. So, in speaking for me, and again, I won't keep doing disclaimers, but solely for me, not as a professional, but for me as a human being, antidepressants did nothing for me. Exercise cured my depression and thought process. Cured my depression.
Wow.
Right. Now that's for me. And I am also aware that there are a lot of psychological conditions that truly do need some antidepressants. I know they're effective for a certain group of psychological conditions. Mm-hmm. But for me, they had zero effect.
That's interesting.
And
that's really interesting.
Yeah.
It does say a lot, yeah. And I think at some point people really need to question their assumptions, because especially the assumptions that say that placebos don't matter. That assumption needs to be challenged inside every single human being, not as a therapeutic thing, not as a medical thing. Just human beings need to challenge it inside themselves, because when they do, they're going to give themselves all kinds of new options they didn't have before.
Well, and that's the amazing thing. If you can do that, that is the placebo effect in life is the miracle of the law of attraction on some level. It's what you believe becomes your reality. And because placebo has a definition of, it's irrelevant. It has no therapeutic effect. That's a wrong statement. It has an incredible therapeutic effect when they believe it.
Yeah, and they can actually show it in the studies. They just dismiss it because they've decided that if it's called placebo and if it's done using placebo methods, then it has no therapeutic effect. Now that they've proven it, they've decided
exactly.
It's pre-existing.
Exactly.
Pretty crazy.
Yes, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Well, the good news is we are seeing shifts, and I guess this podcast actually helps contribute to those shifts. So thank you for sharing and for doing that. And we get the extra pleasure of doing it twice this week. So, Joel, I look forward to talking to you tomorrow.
Well, Walt, I get to do this twice. Very excited. We're also on an amazing book launch this weekend.
That's right.
So
yeah,
we'll talk more about that tomorrow.
Absolutely. We'll spend a lot more time on it. In the meantime, we'll invite you to come back next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.